It's car con carne. Let's eat in the car. It's car con carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
Pinhead Gunpowder has, for over 30 years, been one of those bands where if you know, you know, as the band's really hard to collect catalog is in the staggered process of being reissued. Jason White of the band joins me. Jason has been in bands like, well, The Influence, Monsula, Chino Horde, Foxborough Hot Tubs, perhaps more well known as a member of Green Day, and of course, Pinhead Gunpowder. Jason White is here.
Hey, how's it going?
So it's going good, and we're recording this on Easter, and I don't think it's far from the truth to say that finding all of the Pinhead Gunpowder releases is kind of like an Easter egg hunt, which is why we're talking about reissues in the modern day.
Yeah, correct. It used to be. Now, hopefully it won't be after all this stuff comes out.
The reissues are being staggered. The releases being staggered, being put out by 1, 2, 3, 4 Go on colored vinyl, on handsome colored vinyl. For those keeping track at home, we're in phase 3, which means Goodbye Ellston Avenue and the At Your Funeral 7-inch. This is a good point in the reissue process, because for me, Goodbye Ellston Avenue, that's one of the first things that come to mind, or that comes to mind when I think about Pinhead Gunpowder. So let's start there.
Yeah, it's misspelled on the cover because it is a reference to the street in Chicago.
I don't think I realized that. I thought, well, it's spelled differently, so surely it's not the same Ellston.
No, it's we realized it was misspelled, maybe a couple of years after we initially did the record, and then we just kept deciding, like, oh, just keep it. It's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's more charming to us or something.
So why Ellston? I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great way to avoid taking the expressway during rush hour, but why Ellston?
Honestly, I don't know. I know it was Aaron Elliott's idea, and it had to do with something. I think it was a billboard at the time he was sort of living there that said Goodbye Ellston Avenue. He just sort of took the title and thought it sounded great, sort of like leaving a town or something.
I feel silly for not knowing this, but again, it was misspelled. I just assumed, oh, well, that has to be in San Francisco or something.
No, it's the Chicago reference. Yeah.
So let's talk about Goodbye Ellston Avenue, which is reissued and available. Life During Wartime. That was the right song to kick things off, wasn't it? Yes, like that, as opening tracks go, that's the right one.
Yeah, it's probably our strongest opening song, I would say, of any of the releases. Yeah.
And I love
holds up, I think. Yeah.
Oh, it absolutely holds up. And High Maintenance, to me, that's my favorite. That riff reminded me of why I like punk rock in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That just has that undeniable riff, and the drums are just all flourish on that one.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so fast on the record. I remember sort of trying to go back and play over it to remember it or something. And I was like, oh my God, it's blazing fast because it's kind of a quick riff.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, all your songs are quick. All of Pinhead Gunpowder's library is, if you blink, you're going to miss it. It's gone.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. We realized that with these reissues where we decided to master everything at 45 because it fits, right? And it's going to sound better. So, but was like, oh, I guess even our LP still fits at 45 because the songs are short.
Are you a vinyl collector? Does it mean something to have all this stuff coming out in vinyl?
Absolutely.
Like this?
I mean, vinyl's my first love, my first preference. I'm not necessarily the collector, but I worked at a record store for many years, and of course, I just love vinyl. So I'm glad to see it's all back on vinyl again. Yeah.
So Pinhead Gunpowder still kind of feels like this cool secret. It's not like the band's aggressively built up a social media presence or a digital presence, but considering the membership, considering what you've done in and around Green Day, I'm surprised that the demand and attention for reissues hasn't really reached a fever pitch prior to now, or maybe it has, and you're just getting around to it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we just sort of noticed that, like, wow, it's really becoming hard to find everything or even know if it's still out there, I guess. And and we tried to kind of put everything on a different label a while back, and it didn't work out. And I think we just kind of dropped the ball for a long time, and then it came up again, and we're like, well, let's do it with 1 2 3 4 Go. They're local here in Oakland, and just kind of next door to everything we do, really,
So you came on in '93 with Pinhead Gunpowder?
Yes. Actually, it was late '93, early '94. Yeah.
So the songs on Jump Salty preceded your arrival.
Correct. Yeah.
So were you a fan at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. I had heard someone. I'm originally from Little Rock, Arkansas, and so I was living at this sort of punk apartment, and I remember someone. We just had random sort of punk kids, coming through and staying at our house all the time, or our apartment all the time, and someone had somehow gotten a copy of the Pinhead recordings, the first recordings they did that became Jump Salty eventually. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Wow. It's Aaron, Cometbus, and Billie Joe, and wow, Bill and Kirsch. And so I was definitely a fan. Yeah.
And Big Yellow Taxi. Were the members of the band enraged when Counting Crows had a hit with their version of the cover?
For which one was it? For
Big Yellow Taxi.
I had no idea they did it, honestly. There's a good story though that I think Joni Mitchell actually heard it and totally approved. She loved it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And Future Day. I mean, I know you weren't on these songs, but Future Daydream. That to me sounds like what I've come to understand as '90s West Coast punk rock.
Yeah, I love that song. To me, it defines Pinhead in a way because it's the two singers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was kind of the first show I ever played with Pinhead. That was the song we started with. So, and I was singing all of Kirsch's parts. So, yeah, that one kind of is the opening to all of Pinhead to me, really.
It's the Rosetta Stone for Pinhead Gunpowder.
Yeah, it's the beginning. Yeah.
So I came up in Chicago in the music scene of the '90s, which for people who weren't there, there's this almost like Camelot perception of what happened in Chicago during that period. Different bands exploded. The scene was on fire. I kind of, as silly as I kind of think that may be, I have the same kind of perception about the West Coast scene of the early '90s. I wasn't around it. And to me, from afar, it seems magical. What do you remember from that period?
It is, and it was. I had the impression like I came out in '92. So by the time I got to Gilman in the East Bay scene, I mean, I had met a lot of people in bands before that because all throughout high school, I was in bands and we were hosting other bands and opening up for all the touring bands that were coming through. So I'd met a lot of people from here, from the East Bay. But once I had gotten here, I remember thinking to myself, wow, I feel like I've almost kind of missed it or missed the best part. Because, in punk rock scenes, it's almost like the cycles last so brief, they're it's 2-3 year spurts and then it's gone, and then it changes and something else happens and that band breaks up and somebody else moves in or whatever. So I kind of felt like, well, I'd missed Crimpshrine and Op Ivy and a lot of that stuff. But what I realized was there was still a lot going on, and there were still, a lot of great bands just beginning at that time. But it was different. But it was cool, like reading about it, in Maxim Rock and Roll or whatever it was, or Lookout fanzine, and then getting out here and becoming part of it, every day, and it was great.
One of the most cliche business things I've ever heard, which still proves itself to be true, is this idea that a rising tide lifts all boats. I hate that expression, but it's the only way I can describe certain situations. And I remember when Chicago exploded, the idea that as Smashing Pumpkins and Liz Phair and Urge Overkill blew up, they brought with them all these other bands. Was Green Day the rising tide for the East Bay?
it certainly brought more people or more people notice what was happening here. I wouldn't really describe it as that though, like a rising tide, because the scene, it kind of kept to itself and it kind of stayed the same in a way.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that changed really were bands sort of what's the word I'm looking for? They strove for bigger things, right? It wasn't just about like, let's play in front of our friends. If we could play in front of a few hundred people, this is great, or whatever. Everyone's aspirations became greater, and everyone it seemed like all the bands thought they deserved the same treatment or they deserved the same success. And so that was a little rough. But I don't really see it that way, I guess, myself. But
And what a difference 25, 30 years makes. Back in the day when bands suddenly had aspirations to be a major label artist or to be playing at a higher mainstream level, the word sellout came up far too often in the 90s. It was all you heard. And now in the present day, like that whole mode of thinking seems to be gone.
Yeah, it's weird. And I feel like the other podcasts I listen to, lots of things, like people are talking about that time period and sort of that, that it has been lost, the sort of like pointing fingers sellout thing. But yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
Like it's okay to want to be successful, I guess.
Yeah, it's like which I always thought it was, but right. Yeah, it's weird now that people just don't see it the same way or something. I don't know.
So phase 3 of a 5-phase rollout. Again, goodbye Ellston Avenue. I mean, just this weekend, right? We hit phase 3.
I think so. I'm bad with dates, but I know it's either slated or it's on the way, or it just got released.
Is this nerve-wracking to coordinate given supply chain concerns with vinyl pressing?
Yeah. And I'm not even doing the heavy lifting. Aaron is doing all the artwork and has to keep up with all that. And we're doing t-shirts for the first time, which is kind of exciting.
Awesome.
It's kind of my favorite part of this whole thing so far. Because I think they came out really cool. But yeah, it's been a lot of like, well, who's got that or who's got those tapes or who's got what and where's this and when did this happen? It's been hard because it has been like, okay, we're gonna release this in phases, and we want to stay true to those release dates, but it's been hard. I think it's phase 2 and 3 have already been pushed back from their original dates. They were supposed to come out. So
I'm just impressed to learn that you had some of your archives on DAT and they survived.
Oh yeah. We have everything from 2-inch tape to DATs to cassette to, everything, to digital only files that we can find. It's across the board.
I feel like all my old stuff on DAT is just a ticking time bomb. Like
right.
the clock's ticking. Got to convert that stuff before it just completely erodes and goes away forever.
Right. I mean, I'm feeling that way about a lot of my cassettes, which are kind of above me right here. But yeah, I'm scared to even try and play them or
right,
digitize them or whatever,
because we've all experienced the snap.
Yeah, and then it's gone. Right. Yeah.
So that soul crushing, heart wrenching moment.
Right.
When it's just gone. And of course, because of supply chain issues, cassettes are back.
Yeah. Which is exciting, kind of. I have a cassette player in my kitchen I use all the time now, and it's a new one. Like it does the Bluetooth thing and cassettes, which is great.
So here in the Midwest, Cheap Trick is exalted to the highest possible degree. You guys are all fans, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the common denominator pretty much for everyone in the band is Cheap Trick.
I was at a thrift store about a month ago, and the first 2 Cheap Trick albums, the self-titled and In Color, were there for like $3 a piece. And I've had them in some incarnation for decades running. I'm like, oh shit, I have to buy these just because they're there and because they are flawless records.
Yeah. I have. I think I might have multiple copies of those too, because I have. Sometimes I'd be out record shopping and I'd see it, like a nice clean copy of it, and I'm like, now do I for sure have this at home? So I just buy it just in case, and I get home, oh yeah, I have it, but this copy's maybe a little nicer, so I'll pass the other one along or whatever.
That power pop, the garage sound, that kind of leads me to Foxborough Hot Tubs. Stop, Drop, and Roll holds up especially well, I think.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's great, and it's always fun to listen to for me. Yeah.
I mean, the title track especially with it.
Yeah,
the kids call it a banger.
Yeah, I would say it's a banger for sure. It starts things off well. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because our appreciation for Cheap Trick has only deepened, really. Where, I mean, even as recent as the last tour, there was nights on the bus we're just cranking Tonight It's You and just singing along and playing it again and again and again and again, so yeah. And I know Billy in particular is just a super huge fan of Robin Zander. He's the best singer in rock and roll ever that's ever existed. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I realize this is about Pinhead Gunpowder, but
that's okay. We can let it go to Cheap Trick.
What I love about Cheap Trick in the modern day, in the past 25 years, they never became a nostalgia act. When they tour, they don't do the big hits package, the big State Fair Street Festival package. It is current music. It is deep tracks. It is for the fans.
Yeah. I can't say enough good things about. I mean, and every time I have seen them live, they are fucking fantastic.
Well, yeah, and Robin Zander's voice completely holds up.
It's insane. It's so good, and it's just it's preserved. Like it doesn't. I haven't heard it wane at all.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. So Pinhead Gunpowder, these reissues. I guess my question is, what more will be done with Pinhead Gunpowder? Because again, I kind of feel like the band is one of these decades long running, well-kept secrets. Will there, obviously doing shows is a little challenging and problematic to even consider, but I guess what's the game plan moving forward above and beyond reissues?
Well, we do have plans that keep changing and getting canceled, and then and they're sort of on the back burner, and we're going to try and get to it. But we have some songs, and we just need to get in the same room together and hopefully play some shows. We were talking about all kinds of different plans, from going to England, maybe, to go, doing the East Coast or something, hubbing in New York or something and playing a few shows out there. But none of it's really come to fruition yet. But it'll happen eventually. So we haven't hung it up. We're still pursuing, trying to do at least one more thing.
The Billy factor is what it is. NME in their headline talking about the reissues. Billie Joe Armstrong's Pinhead Gunpowder to reissue entire discography on vinyl. Mm-hmm. The press can't help itself. Have you made your peace with the fact that Billie Joe is just who he is? And
absolutely, yeah. I mean, that sort of comes with. Like you said, journalism is that's what it is. They need people. They need a reference for someone to understand what it is. So they just throw it out there. And
I guess no matter how people come to the party, as long as they come to the party, I guess is a good thing.
Yeah. And I mean, it is his band, and a lot of ways. So that's okay. To just throw his name out there, and a lot of people used to reference it's the Cometbus, super group or something like that. So that's fine too.
As you're going through, or as you have been going through all the material, doing all these reissues, I'm guessing this was the hardest you've looked at your material in quite some time, or focused on the breadth of what you recorded and put together. How did that feel?
At least 10 years, for sure. It's fun to go back and listen, and and to like it in a different way, sometimes I would think like I can't listen to this stuff ever again. Like I've just heard it so many times. But if you give it, you give it a break and you come back to it, it's, it gives perspective.
Did you hear the imperfections?
I don't try to dwell on it.
Did you hear the imperfections too much when it was too recent?
No, the imperfections are the best part, really.
That's punk rock.
Because that's what makes it sweet. That to me, that's what makes it. I mean, the song's the song, and the recording is the recording. Performance is what it is. And, and if it captures some sort of looseness or tightness or whatever, that's just where we were at the time, and that's what's kind of, to look back at your earlier work, that's where you find the joy in it. I think,
for sure.
If that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense to me. Yeah. Okay, so again, as we speak, Goodbye Ellston Avenue, for a lot of people, the gateway drug into Pinhead Gunpowder, available on collectible, gorgeous looking vinyl, and the hits keep coming, as they, not me, say. The reissues will continue, 2 more phases. It's this very well coordinated rollout of all things Pinhead Gunpowder. Jason White, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.